Sarah had inherited her grandfather's small farm 2 years ago after quitting her soul-crushing corporate job in the city. The property's crown jewel was a picturesque pond where she'd established a thriving flock of rare heritage Cocky Campbell ducks, known for their exceptional egg-laying abilities and distinctive golden brown eggs. These weren't just any eggs. Local chefs from 3 counties competed for her weekly supply, willing to pay premium prices for their rich, creamy yolks. Sarah had finally found her peace, waking each morning to the gentle quacking of her feathered companions, until earth movers appeared on the adjacent property that had been untouched woodland for decades. The construction manager handed her a business card, Oak Ridge Estates, luxury living in nature's embrace. Sarah's stomach nodded as she watched the trees fall, her ducks huddling nervously at the edge of their pond. The morning after the bulldozers arrived, Sarah woke to an eerie silence. Her ducks, only chattering at dawn, were unnaturally quiet. She threw on her rubber boots and hurried outside to find them huddled together, disoriented by the drastically changed landscape. Where dense forests had once provided a windbreak and natural sound barrier, there was now bare earth stretching for acres, marked with small flags indicating future home sites. Plot number 17, the closest to her property line, is marked with a special gold flag, Premium Waterfront View. They're marketing my pond as their waterfront feature, Sarah realized with growing dread. She reached down to stroke Henrietta, her lead duck and the flock's matriarch, who nipped affectionately at her fingers. "Don't worry, girl. We were here first," she whispered, though the reassurance sounded hollow even to her own ears. That afternoon, Sarah called the county planning office, where a sympathetic but unhelpful clerk explained that the development had been approved months ago. "But I never received any notification," Sarah protested, leafing through her grandfather's meticulously organized files. "Notification was published in the county register," the clerk responded in a practiced tone. "Standard procedure. The county register. A print-only newspaper with circulation of barely 500 that her grandfather had canceled years ago." Sarah thanked the clerk and hung up, then walked to her kitchen window. Outside, concrete trucks were now pouring foundations for the first homes, a fine dust drifting over her herb garden. Her ducks paddled anxiously in circles, their instincts warning them that their peaceful world was rapidly changing. That evening, as Sarah collected the day's eggs, each one a perfect golden oval, still warm and promising the exceptional flavor that had built her small business, she made a silent promise to her grandfather and her ducks. "Nothing is going to drive us away. This farm has survived drought, floods, and economic downturns. We'll survive pretentious neighbors, too." She couldn't have known then that it wasn't just the development that threatened her peace, specifically plot number 17, purchased the very next day by Marjorie Peterson, recently divorced from a hedge fund manager and eager to establish herself as the queen of any community unfortunate enough to welcome her. Marjorie Peterson's Mercedes gleamed in the morning sun as she conducted her daily property value patrol. Fresh from her victorious HOA presidential campaign, run on a platform of elevated standards, she already issued 15 violation notices in her first week. From her custom-built deck, she glared through designer sunglasses at Sarah's ducks, which she loudly described to anyone within earshot as flying rodents. When her complaints to the county failed, Sarah's farm was properly zoned and grandfathered in. Marjorie began documenting the duck menace with a telephoto lens. Sarah first realized the extent of the problem when she received an anonymous printout of HOA meeting minutes discussing contamination concerns from neighboring livestock operation and proactive measures to preserve community standards. That night, Sarah installed security cameras, an expense that ate into her savings but seemed increasingly necessary. The situation escalated on a crisp Saturday morning when Sarah was hosting her monthly farm-to-table experience, a small gathering where customers could see exactly where their premium eggs came from. Chef Laurent from Le Petit Canard, her most prestigious client, was demonstrating his famous duck egg soufflé to an enthusiastic group when a golf cart bearing the Oak Ridge Estates security logo sputtered to a stop at her property line. "Ma'am, we've received noise complaints from several residents," announced a college-aged security guard who looked profoundly uncomfortable. Behind him, Sarah spotted Marjorie watching from her deck with opera glasses, a self-satisfied smile playing across her surgically enhanced lips. "This is a working farm on private property," Sarah replied calmly, mindful of her paying guests. "And we're well within county noise ordinances." The guard shifted awkwardly. "Yes, ma'am, but Mrs. Peterson suggested that perhaps your commercial activities might require special permitting?" Chef Laurent stepped forward, his French accent thickening with indignation. "These eggs," he declared, holding up a golden specimen, "are the finest in 3 states. My restaurant has a 3-month waiting list because of them. Who is this person interfering with culinary art?" The confrontation ended with the guard retreating, but the damage was done. 3 couples from the event canceled their standing egg orders, citing concerns about getting involved in neighborhood disputes. Later that week, elegant envelopes appeared in every Oak Ridge estate mailbox containing invitations to Marjorie's Welcome to the Neighborhood soiree. Sarah found hers stuck to her fence, the only resident not to receive proper delivery. The invitation's postscript read, "Dress code enforced, no farm attire." Sarah might have ignored the slight, except for the glossy brochure included with the invitation. Entitled Property Values, Protecting Your Investment, it featured a poorly photoshopped image of her ducks superimposed onto a disease control pamphlet with a sidebar titled Health Risks of Agricultural Proximity. The final page outlined the HOA's Community Beautification Initiative, with a map showing planned landscaping upgrades, including a visual barrier of tall hedges precisely along her property line that would block her ducks' access to sunlight. "This is getting ridiculous," Sarah muttered, reaching for her phone to call Miguel, her oldest friend and most level-headed advisor. As she dialed, she noticed a new addition to Marjorie's deck, a realistic plastic owl, a predator decoy positioned to face directly toward her duck pond, already causing visible distress among her flock. The notification pinged on Sarah's phone at 5:42 a.m. Motion detected, duck house. Half asleep, she watched in disbelief as a figure in premium athleisure wear and a wide-brimmed hat slipped through her garden gate. The trespasser moved with surprising agility for someone in her 60s, expertly collecting every single egg while occasionally glancing toward the main house. When the woman turned briefly toward the camera, Sarah gasped. It was unmistakably Marjorie, clutching a monogrammed basket now filled with 24 golden brown eggs. At the police station later that morning, Officer Jenkins reviewed the footage with a sigh. "It's technically theft and trespassing, but the DA won't pursue it. These border disputes with a new development happen weekly." He advised Sarah to work it out neighbor to neighbor, clearly not understanding the adversary she was facing. Sarah sat in her truck in the police station parking lot, gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. The officer's dismissal stung worse than the theft itself. 24 eggs, her entire morning collection, represented nearly $200 in lost revenue from her premium restaurant clients. For Marjorie, it was merely a trophy. For Sarah, it was groceries and the electric bill. Her phone chimed with a text from Miguel. "Well, police won't help," she typed back. "Said it's a civil matter and to handle it myself." Three dots pulsed as Miguel composed his response. "That's BS. Coming over with coffee and donuts. We'll figure this out." Sarah started her truck just as her phone pinged with a social media notification. Dread pooled in her stomach as she opened Oak Ridge Estate's community page to find a new post from Marjorie. A beautifully styled photo of duck eggs Benedict on Wedwood china with a caption, "Farm fresh breakfast. The benefits of country living. Hashtag list, hashtag organic, hashtag farm toteable." Already the post had 17 likes and comments like "Looks divine, Marge," and "Recipe please." Back at the farm, Sarah found her ducks agitated, still looking for their missing eggs. Henrietta, the lead duck, waddled over, expectantly nudging Sarah's palm for treats. "I'm sorry, girl," Sarah whispered. "Someone stole your babies." When Miguel arrived, they reviewed the security footage again. "Look how she's moving," Miguel pointed out. "She knows exactly where to go, which nests to check. This isn't her first time." Sarah's eyes widened. "You think she's been doing this before?" "But I only installed the cameras 3 days ago." Miguel nodded grimly. "Remember last week when you said egg production was down? You thought maybe the construction noise was stressing them." Sarah scrolled through her meticulous production log. Indeed, for 2 weeks, numbers had been mysteriously declining, not drastically enough to suspect predators, but noticeable in her records. "I need better cameras," Sarah decided. "Higher resolution, more angles." Miguel held up a hand. "Wait, I have a better idea." He pulled out his phone, showing her the Oak Ridge Estate's Facebook page. According to this event's calendar, Marjorie is hosting the HOA board for brunch tomorrow at 10 a.m. Topic of discussion: adjacent property compliance issues. "She's serving my eggs to people who are discussing ways to run me out of business." Sarah's voice rose incredulously. "Exactly," Miguel said, a calculating look crossing his face. "And I think you should attend." "I'm not invited," Sarah pointed out. Miguel's smile turned mischievous. "Know what I am. My cousin George bought the corner lot last month. He's out of town and asked me to represent him at meetings." He held up an embossed invitation card. "Plus ones are encouraged, and I happen to know Marjorie is too status conscious to make a scene in front of the board. Let's see how she handles having you at her table, eating your own stolen eggs." "My dear, I haven't the faintest idea what you're talking about," Marjorie said with a rehearsed smile when Sarah confronted her, the security footage playing on Sarah's phone between them. Behind Marjorie, through her spotless kitchen window, Sarah spotted her own distinctive eggs arranged artfully in a ceramic bowl. The theft continued with brazen regularity, always before dawn, always when the eggs were at their freshest. The final straw came when Sarah discovered Marjorie was hosting a farm-to-table breakfast fundraiser for the HOA at $75 per plate, featuring locally sourced heritage duck eggs. The event's photo showed Sarah's eggs prominently displayed. That same afternoon, Sarah's business phone rang. 3 regular chef clients asking why she'd started selling exclusively to that dreadful HOA woman who was now undercutting Sarah's prices to restaurants across the county. The brunch confrontation had gone exactly as Miguel predicted. Marjorie's carefully cultivated facade cracked momentarily when Sarah and Miguel walked in, but she recovered quickly, playing the gracious hostess to perfection. "Sarah, what an unexpected pleasure," she'd said through clenched teeth, her eyes darting nervously to the kitchen where Sarah's golden eggs were being transformed into gourmet delicacies. The HOA board members, mostly wealthy retirees and corporate executives, seemed genuinely interested in Sarah's farm. One woman, a former agricultural economist, peppered Sarah with questions about heritage breed conservation. Another, an environmental lawyer, expressed concerns about the development's impact on local wildlife. For a brief, hopeful moment, Sarah thought she might find allies. Then Marjorie skillfully redirected the conversation. "While Sarah's little hobby farm is certainly quaint," she said, her voice dripping with condescension, "we must consider the impact on our investment." She distributed glossy folders containing real estate projections. Properties adjacent to agricultural operations typically see a 15% reduction in value appreciation. The mood shifted instantly. The same board members who'd been enthusiastically discussing sustainable farming moments before now frowned at spreadsheets and property valuations. Sarah realized she'd been outmaneuvered. Marjorie had used her presence to strengthen her case against the farm. As they left, Miguel squeezed Sarah's hand. "Don't worry. Most of them seem to like you." "They liked me until money entered the conversation," Sarah replied grimly. 2 days later, Sarah received an official-looking letter from the county zoning board. Someone had filed a complaint about her farm, triggering a mandatory inspection. The attached form cited multiple anonymous reports of unsanitary conditions and commercial activity exceeding permitted scope. At the bottom, a handwritten note from the county clerk read, "Sarah, heads up, this is the 5th complaint this month. All from the same person, Jim." The inspection went well. Sarah's operation was immaculate and fully compliant, but the damage to her reputation had begun. Whispers spread through the local restaurant community. Why was her supply suddenly unreliable? Were there really health concerns? Then came the Facebook Marketplace listing that Chef Laurent forwarded to her. Premium heritage duck eggs, limited supply, $12/dozen. The photos clearly showed Sarah's eggs, but the seller was listed as Oak Ridge Organic Farms, a business that didn't exist. The contact number belonged to Marjorie. "She's not just stealing my eggs," Sarah realized. "She's stealing my entire business model." When Sarah drove to her 3 remaining restaurant clients to reassure them, she found Marjorie had beaten her there. 2 chefs awkwardly explained they'd signed exclusive supply contracts with Oak Ridge Organic at rates Sarah couldn't possibly match. The third, a farm-to-table cafe owner named Johnita, showed Sarah a cease and desist letter she'd received after declining Marjorie's offer. "The letter claims I'm violating health codes by sourcing from your farm," Johnita explained, bewildered. "It's full of legal jargon about unauthorized agricultural enterprises and threatens to report me to the health department." Sarah recognized the stationery. It matched the HOA letterhead, but with Legal Affairs Division added to the header. "This isn't from a real lawyer," Sarah said. "She's bluffing." "Maybe," Joanna replied nervously, "but I can't afford to fight it. I have 3 kids and a mortgage." Driving home, Sarah tallied the damage. Her reputation questioned, her client base decimated, her livelihood threatened, all through carefully calibrated attacks that skirted just beyond what authorities would address. The final confirmation came when she checked her farm's online reviews, suddenly flooded with 1-star ratings claiming food poisoning and pest infestations, all from newly created accounts with profile pictures clearly pulled. "She's literally stealing your livelihood," fumed Miguel over coffee at Sarah's kitchen table. His craft store had just received a shipment of high-end decorative items for their spring collection. "These ceramic eggs are handcrafted by an artist in Vermont, $18 each wholesale, because they're practically indistinguishable from the real thing. We use them for display because they don't spoil." He placed one beside a real duck egg on the table. The match was uncanny. Sarah's mind raced as she mentally calculated the investment against her dwindling egg sales. "How many do you have in stock?" she asked, a plan crystallizing. Miguel grinned, sensing her intention. "For you, I could get 2 dozen by tomorrow. Employee discount." They clanked coffee mugs in conspiracy as Sarah's ducks quacked approvingly from the pond visible through her kitchen window. Sarah cradled the ceramic egg in her palm, testing its weight. It was heavier than a real egg, satisfyingly solid. The surface had been meticulously hand-painted to mimic the distinctive golden-brown speckled pattern unique to her chalky Campbells. "They're beautiful," she murmured, "but expensive. That's nearly $450 for 2 dozen." Miguel waved dismissively. "Consider it an investment in justice." Besides, he added, pulling out his phone, "Look at this." He showed her Marjorie's latest social media post, a professionally photographed spread in her dining room featuring eggs Benedict, quiche, and custard tarts. The caption read, "Preparations underway for our exclusive chef's tasting event. Limited tickets still available, $150. Sarah's jaw dropped. She's charging $150 per person for food made with stolen eggs. 26 confirmed attendees according to the event page, Miguel added. That's almost $4,000 gross for one brunch. Your eggs, your recipes, your reputation, her profit. Sarah's farmhouse kitchen suddenly felt too small to contain her anger. She stood and paced, her mind working through logistics. The plan needs to be perfect. If I mess this up, she'll paint me as the villain. We need evidence, Miguel agreed. Irrefutable proof that she's the one stealing, not just my word against hers. Sarah paused by the window, watching her ducks. Henrietta was teaching the younger ones to forage, patiently demonstrating proper technique. They're such good mothers, she said softly. So protective of what's theirs. Her expression shifted as an idea formed. I need more than just the ceramic eggs. I need to document everything. Over the next hours, their plan expanded beyond simple substitution. Sarah called Chef Lauren, explaining everything. The outraged chef not only offered moral support but practical assistance. He knew a food critic at the regional magazine who'd been trying to secure a reservation at Marjorie's exclusive brunches. Camille has been suspicious of this sudden farm-to-table expert for weeks, Lauren explained over speakerphone. No one in the culinary community had heard of this woman before, yet suddenly she's charging premium prices and claiming decades of experience with heritage breeds. Camille would be very interested in discovering the truth. Miguel's cousin George, the absent HOA board member, provided the final piece. The HOA bylaws specifically prohibit criminal activity or civil violations that damage community reputation, he explained during their three-way call. If you can prove theft and fraudulent business practices, the board can vote to remove her as president and issue significant fines. By evening, Operation Egg Swap had evolved into a comprehensive sting. Sarah would replace her real eggs with ceramic replicas, but also install 3 additional high-definition cameras with night vision and audio. Apply an invisible ultraviolet reactive dye to the ceramic eggs that would transfer hands, showing up under blacklight for days even after washing. Document all egg production in a notarized daily log witnessed by Chef Lauren. Coordinate with Camille, the food critic, to attend Marjorie's next brunch event. Prepare formal complaints to both the Better Business Bureau and the State Attorney General's Consumer Fraud Division. This seems like a lot, Sarah said hesitantly as they reviewed their battle plan. Am I overreacting? Miguel looked at her seriously. Sarah, she's not just stealing eggs. She's stealing your identity as a farmer, your reputation, your customers. She's threatening your entire way of life while profiting from it. This isn't petty, it's predatory. Sarah nodded, resolution hardening. She picked up one of the ceramic eggs, its perfect surface gleaming in the evening light. Tomorrow morning, then, we'll be ready before dawn. That night, she moved her ducks to the secure inner coop, a precaution against any potential retaliation. As she tucked extra straw around their nesting boxes, Henrietta nuzzled. Sarah meticulously arranged the ceramic replicas in the duck house, each positioned exactly where her birds typically laid. The special high-definition camera she'd splurged on captured Marjorie's pre-dawn raid in perfect clarity. From her self-satisfied smirk to the designer basket she'd started bringing specifically for her thefts. Sarah curled up on her porch swing with her tablet, watching Liv as Marjorie hurried home with her ill-gotten bounty. The waiting was excruciating. At precisely 8:43 a.m., a shriek of frustration echoed across the property line, so loud it startled the ducks into a chorus of alarmed quacking. Sarah's doorbell camera activated moments later, showing a red-faced Marjorie brandishing a ceramic egg, her hand wrapped in a blood-spotted dish towel. You think this is funny? I merely broke my wrist. The doorbell recording captured Sarah's calm reply. I'm sorry. What exactly are you admitting to taking from my property without permission, Marjorie? The morning had started well before sunrise. Sarah, Miguel, and Chef Lauren gathered in the pre-dawn darkness, moving with practiced precision. Lauren inspected each ceramic egg, nodding approvingly at their craftsmanship. Magnifique, he whispered. Even I would be fooled at first glance. Miguel carefully applied the UV reactive compound to each egg with a soft brush while wearing gloves. This stuff is used in high-end retail security, he explained. Completely invisible in normal light, but under UV, it glows electric blue. Best part? It transfers on contact and lasts for days, even with vigorous washing. Sarah synchronized the 4 cameras, testing their night vision capability by having Miguel walk a test pattern through the duck yard. The footage was crystal clear, each camera capturing his movement from different angles, the timestamp and GPS coordinates watermarked in the corner. Remember, Miguel cautioned as they finished preparations, no matter what happens, let the evidence speak for itself. Don't confront her directly until everything is documented. By 5:15 a.m., they were hidden inside Sarah's darkened farmhouse, 3 pairs of eyes fixed on the tablet displaying the camera feeds. Chef Laurent checked his watch nervously. Are you certain she'll come today? Perhaps our activity has scared her off. Trust me, Sarah replied. She needs these eggs for her brunch tomorrow. 26 paying customers expecting gourmet duck egg dishes. She'll come. At 5:37 a.m., the motion sensors triggered. A familiar figure in premium athleisure wear slipped through the garden gate, her movements confident and practiced. Marjorie moved directly to the duck house, no longer bothering with caution, clearly assuming Sarah would still be asleep. Mon Dieu, breathed Laurent, the audacity. They watched in silence as Marjorie efficiently collected all 24 ceramic eggs, arranging them carefully in her monogrammed basket. She paused briefly to admire her haul, running her bare hand over several eggs, ensuring good transfer of the invisible dye. Camera 2 captured her smug smile in perfect detail as she whispered to herself, "Premium stock today? I can charge extra. Did you get that audio?" Miguel whispered excitedly. Sarah nodded, already backing up the footage to 3 separate devices. The Oak Ridge Estates community Facebook page exploded by afternoon. Jennifer Lawson, a retired judge who had recently moved in, sparked the conversation. Disturbed to learn our HOA funds were used to purchase refreshments that appeared to have been stolen from neighboring property. Requesting emergency board meeting. Security footage, helpfully uploaded by Sarah after Marjorie's outburst, showed 6 separate thefts in crystal clear detail. Comments accumulated rapidly, residents expressing shock that their elevated HOA fees, $475 monthly, were funding what one commenter called organized agricultural theft. The situation reached its crescendo at the emergency meeting when Marjorie, attempting to defend herself, accidentally admitted she'd been selling the stolen eggs to local restaurants as her own side business. The horrified gasps from her neighbors only intensified when Chef Antoine from Maison Bleu stood up. This explains why the quality dropped recently. I've been purchasing from the actual producer for years. These eggs have a distinctive profile that discerning palates recognize immediately. Sarah hadn't planned to attend the emergency HOA meeting. Miguel had insisted, practically dragging her to his cousin George's house where residents were gathering in the spacious sunroom. You need to see this through, he'd argued. Besides, they can't make any decisions about restitution without you present. The atmosphere was tense when they arrived. Over 40 residents had crammed into the room, murmuring in small clusters while occasionally glancing toward the empty chair at the head of the table, Marjorie's usual throne. Sarah recognized Jennifer Lawson immediately. The retired judge carried herself with quiet authority, her silver hair styled in an elegant bob. She nodded slightly in Sarah's direction, a gesture that felt like an acknowledgement between allies. I'd rather stand in the back, Sarah whispered to Miguel, uncomfortable with the curious glances from residents. Not a chance, he replied, steering her toward 2 reserved seats near the front. George saved us prime viewing spots for the showdown. The room quieted as Jennifer called the meeting to order, explaining she was acting as interim chair given the circumstances. As most of you have seen on our community page, we're facing a serious situation involving our HOA president, she began, her voice steady and measured. Since many of you haven't met our neighbor Sarah before, I'd like to invite her to briefly introduce herself. Sarah felt her cheeks flush as all eyes turned toward her. Public speaking had never been her strong suit. Nevertheless, she stood and cleared her throat. I'm Sarah Williamson. My grandfather's farm has been operating for over 60 years. I raise heritage breed khaki Campbell ducks, which produce eggs sought after by regional chefs. She paused, swallowing hard. Until recently, my business was thriving. From the back of the room, someone called out, "Show them the footage." Jennifer nodded to a young man operating a laptop connected to a large television. The screen flickered to life, showing a compilation of security camera clips, each one with clear timestamps and GPS coordinates. The room fell silent as they watched 6 separate incidents of Marjorie entering Sarah's property and taking eggs. The final clip included audio of Marjorie smugly whispering about premium stock and charging extra. The eggs being taken have a wholesale value of approximately $8 each to restaurants, Sarah explained as the footage ended. Over the past month, I estimate I've lost over $2,000 in product and suffered significant damage to client relationships. A tall man in golfing attire stood up, his face flushed with anger. I paid $150 for her brunch last weekend. She claimed those eggs came from her family's farm in Vermont. I wrote a check to Oak Ridge Organic Farms last week, added a woman in a tennis dress. She said it was her business venture bringing artisanal agriculture to our community.